mind is inside the body in the same sense that mammal is inside the dog. We must remember that the mind is not physically inside the body, but it is semantically inside the body. In this regard, we can understand the use of what is called the Shaka Chandra Nyaya by Lord Chaitanya. In ancient Indian philosophy, examples by which we can rethink the nature of reality were called Nyaya. The Shaka Chandra Nyaya says that the moon is in between the branches of the tree. Factually, the moon is somewhere else, but you can also say that the moon is in between the tree branches. Like that, the mind is within the bounds of the body, just like moon is within the branches of the tree. This basically means that you can detect the presence and effects of the mind within the body, but the mind is not physically inside the body. Just because you see the moon in between the branches of the tree doesn't mean that the moon is physically there. So you can carry out experiments on the body and you will find that there is a mind, as you can perceive the effects of the mind on the body. But it would be a mistake to reduce the mind to the body, just like it would be wrong to say that because I can see the moon in between the tree branches, so it must actually be physically inside the tree. The reductionist and materialist philosophers are victims of the Shaka Chandra Nyaya. They insist that just because I can detect the presence of the mind in the body, therefore the mind must be the body. This reduction is tantamount to saying that just because each dog is a mammal, therefore mammal must be the dog. In other words, there is nothing more to the word mammal than all the breastfeeding animals, so mammal itself is not an idea that exists apart from these animals. The fact is that the mammal is inside the dog, and yet it is outside the dog. And you need a new notion of space to understand this inside and outside. That notion of space is the semantic tree of ideas. Likewise, the mind is inside the body by its effects, but factually the mind is outside the body. This only means that the existence of the mind can be detected through bodily behavior, but the mind doesn't reduce to that behavior. This idea is pertinent to understanding how the soul is inside the body and yet not the body. Factually, the soul is like the moon, situated somewhere else. But the soul casts a reflection in the body by which we can say that the moon has appeared between the branches of the tree. So you could say that the soul is inside the body, just like the moon is in the branches of the tree. But as Lord Krishna explains, if the body is burned, the soul is not burnt. So if you cut down the tree, the moon will no longer appear within the branches, but the moon would still exist because it was always outside the branches. Modern science has been defined to study the tree rather than the moon. When we observe the tree branches, we can see the moon inside. But since the moon can be seen even when the branches are cut, therefore, the moon is not inside the branches, although it appears to be there. This idea is deeply connected to the problem of reincarnation of the soul, where the soul goes from one body to another and becomes entangled in the body. Just like moon can be seen through several branches of several different trees. And yet you can keep investigating in the body and never find the soul. By chopping the trees, we cannot cut down the moon. It only means that the existence of the soul is like that of the idea of mammal which exists inside each dog, and yet it doesn't reduce to the dog itself. The presence of the soul and God is empirical within science. But that empiricism doesn't mean the soul and God are material. We can epistemologically confirm the existence of the soul and God inside the body by formulating the theories of nature that employ soul and God. And these theories will be confirmed because the soul and God have effects on the body which cannot be explained without the hypothesis of the soul and God. But the soul and God are not ontologically reduced to the body. So you can epistemologically confirm the existence of the soul and God in matter, but you cannot reduce them to matter. This is a different kind of empiricism which is non-material. In this empiricism, soul and God are ideas or concepts whose presence can be detected inside matter, but these are not reduced to matter. In classical Western empiricism, which is also material, if you can see something empirically, then it must also be material. It is a subtle fact about modern science that we actually do not perceive the scientific concepts such as mass, charge, energy, angular momentum, spin, etc. What we perceive is just taste, touch, smell, sound, and sight. But we explain these perceptions by using a host of scientific concepts such as particle, wave, mass, energy, momentum, etc. So even in scientific empiricism, the theoretical ideas are not directly measured. For example, you cannot just talk about a particle or mass. You have to measure their effect in terms of motion. If the theory that uses these ideas makes correct predictions and explanations, we say that those ideas in the theory have become real. So we are within the bounds of the empirical method when we say that soul and God are ideas which have effects on the body. And while we cannot observe these ideas, we can measure their effects. These ideas must be given reality through the confirmation in the same way that particle, wave, energy, momentum are given reality after the theory using them makes correct predictions. So semanticism doesn't overturn the empirical method, but it helps us understand why it works so well. The reason is that ideas such as mass, charge, energy, momentum, etc. incarnate in each object, just like a mammal incarnates inside a dog. By this incarnation, we say that there are many individual mammals which must behave according to the theory about the mammal. We never perceive the mammal by our senses, but we can see the individual dogs. However, these dogs follow the rules of being a mammal. In the same way, we never perceive mass, charge, energy, or momentum, but we can see that each individual thing follows the laws prescribed to these conceptual properties and objects. When the theory is empirically confirmed, within the theory we can understand concepts. Just like you can say the moon is within the branches of the tree, but the moon is actually not within the tree.